If you press the right analog stick button in the deck edit screen in Yu-Gi-Oh! Duels of the Roses, you'll be prompted to enter in a password. And if you enter in any of the functioning passwords, you will gain a copy of that card, and yeah, that's it. You got a Blue Eyes White Dragon at the very start of the game. Pretty cool, huh? You can only enter a password to gain a card once per file, but if you start a new game on a different memory card, then enter a password, then go to the trade function from the main menu with both of these memory cards inserted, you can simply trade that card over, and you can even get 3 copies of Blue Eyes White Dragon at the start of the game, without even having entered a single duel. Amazing. As it turns out, there are actually functioning passwords for over 700 cards in the game. The full list I'll link down below the video in the description if you'd like to enter some of these passwords. As they were data mined in 2017 by generic mad scientist, pretty much most of the cards in the game that actually are obtainable have a working password so you can gain the card extremely easily. In fact, all cards actually have a password in the game, but there are 120 cards in the game, including Ryoku, Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon, and Mirror Force, that actually have their passwords disabled. But we didn't always know that there was a password for Blue Eyes White Dragon, or most of the cards on this list. In fact, prior to the data mining in 2017, there were only 34 passwords that were common knowledge being posted on websites such as CheatCC, and other various sites as early as 2003, which was the year this game came out. Some childhood playthroughs involved relying on cards such as Aqua Dragon, Barrel Dragon, Change of Heart, and one particular card that absolutely cheeses the entire game, and some of these cards really made the difference between people being able to actually finish the game, so let's talk about all of these cards. Let's talk about the passwords of our childhood. Ancient Tree of Enlightenment is a plant monster that disables the effect of all trap cards while it's face up on the field in defense position. This card is incredibly useful against opponents who rely on trap cards to disable your monsters, such as Pegasus and Darkness Ruler. On the contrary, it is quite useless against opponents that don't have any trap cards in their deck, such as Mako and Shardy, as this effect will never be useful. Keep in mind that this disables your own trap cards too, so it's best used in a deck that doesn't use any other trap cards. Royal Decree is a trap card that has that same effect while it's present on the field. It disables the effect of all trap cards other than itself. Like Ancient Tree of Enlightenment, it disables the other traps that you also use, so again, it's best used in a deck with no other trap cards, and also best used against opponents who play a lot of trap cards. Royal Decree has a much higher deck cost than Ancient Tree of Enlightenment, but if deck cost is not an issue, Royal Decree is better in most situations, as it costs no summoning power to play, and it doesn't need to be in face-up or defense position for its effect to work. Aqua Dragon is one of the strongest passwords you can include in a playthrough of the game. Aqua Dragon creates sea terrain when it engages in a battle, therefore boosting its own attack to 2750 in battles even without any equips or boosts. The main power it has against opponents, however, is that the AI never takes its effect into account, and so it never bothers to calculate the difference of attack, so the AI will attack into Aqua Dragon with monsters that will lose to it in battle once the terrain is changed to sea due to Aqua Dragon's effect. To maximize this, you can keep an Aqua Dragon on Wasteland or Toon, so it has 750 attack, and let your opponent attack into it, and you'll destroy anything up to 2700 attack that attacks this card. Barrel Dragon is also a very strong password due to its very high attack of 2600. Barrel Dragon has a pretty powerful effect. When it's flipped up, it will randomly destroy one card on the field other than itself. This does include your other cards, however, so it's best used in a situation where your opponent has more cards on the field than you do, or optimally, you don't have any other cards on the field at all other than this one. Considering this card reaches over 3000 attack on Wasteland without any equips or boosts, it's just really strong as a boss monster in any deck in general, and this is one of my personal favorites playing this game as a kid. Beast King of the Swamp is a relatively weak monster but with a rather powerful effect. When destroyed in battle, Beast King of the Swamp's effect will destroy the monster that defeated it. The best way to use an effect like this is to play a card like Beast King of the Swamp a couple tiles away from an opponent's strong monster in order to bait them into attacking this card, as the AI, again, don't really care about monster effects, and they will take the bait in most situations. Swordsman from a foreign land has the exact same effect on a card that is much lower SP and deck cost, making it a lighter and more efficient way to play Beast King of the Swamps. Not a bad card to have in your deck. At such low deck cost and playable every turn with SP to spare, you can kind of treat this similarly to a trap card. Birdface boosts all winged beasts attack and defense by 300, while it is face up in defense mode. This card is actually obtainable in the graveyard slots, so you can duplicate it if you own at least one copy of it. One of the 17 starter decks in the game actually has Birdface as a deck leader, and while you can farm it in the slots, you can accelerate the process of farming duplicates of it just by entering in this password. Funny enough, 5 of the passwords that we all knew early were actually deck leaders for the starter decks you could possibly be given at the start of the game. Fairy King Trusdale increases plants attack and defense by 500 while it's face up in the defense position. Robotic Knight increases machines by 300 each while it's face up defense position. Serpentine Princess increases all reptiles on the field by 900 when you flip it face up. And Tactical Warrior increases all of your warriors on the field by 300 when you flip it face up. Funny enough, these cards can all be duplicated in the graveyard slots, with the exception of Tactical Warrior. Blast Sphere has an effect where if it is destroyed by battle, it destroys all cards in the tiles surrounding it. So, you can bait your opponent into attacking this if you want to destroy their monster, but I certainly wouldn't recommend putting this monster near any of your own valuable cards. Change of Heart allows you to take control of one of your opponent's cards. Not just a monster, but any card. It allows you to select any of their cards, even one that's face down, and control it for a turn. One of the most popular uses of this card is using it to take control of a monster near an opponent's deck leader to attack them directly with it. But there are plenty of uses you can do with this card, such as taking control of a card to use its effect, and any other action you could perform if a card was treated as your own, such as actually playing a card over it to just get it off the field and into the graveyard. You can even do some really spicy stuff, like take control of an opponent's monster to move it onto crush terrain to destroy it if you really feel like it. Dark Hole is insane. It is super strong in this game. Instead of its TCG effect of destroying all monsters on the field, which is already powerful enough, this card actually destroys all cards on the field. One of the best things you can do with it is set it super early into a duel. Then if you're in a position to play a card to finish off your opponent, you can activate the set Dark Hole to wipe out any trap cards and clear any obstacles out of the way, so that you can play a card out of a hand that same turn and destroy your opponent after you've cleared the field with the Dark Hole. The most broken strategy for Dark Hole, however, is if you set a white hole on the field, then anytime you activate Dark Hole, you simply just board wipe your opponent with no penalty whatsoever. This is honestly one of the most broken strategies in the whole entire game, in my opinion, just so long as you are the person who first sets White Hole, and there is no spell or trap negation on the field. This works 100% of the time. Dragonseeker is a monster that gains 500 attack and defense during a battle with a dragon monster. It's pretty cool, but unless you're on Yami, you won't be attacking over any dragon stronger than 2500 attack, so I don't know, you might just want to use a more powerful fiend like Summon Skull or Zoa anyways, but if you want a free 2000 attack fiend, then why not? Earthshaker is a really powerful spell card that mixes up the entire field randomly when activated, mixing up all the cards on the field too. The spiciest part of the effect, however, is that it will remove all labyrinth tiles on the field and turn them into normal terrain tiles. So this card alone can really cheese some duels such as Grandpa and, of course, Labyrinth Ruler. This is actually one of the 2 passwords you can get at the end of one of the 2 campaigns, the other one being Fairy's Gift. It's a pretty cool card with an effect that grants you 800 life points when you flip it face up, which is actually a pretty decent amount. If you're just running any stall deck, it's useful, I suppose. Because your LP is capped at 9,999 in this game, LP recovery decks aren't really that good strategies, but if you're just playing casually, especially if you're building like Spellcaster, Light, or Female deck, this card is honestly fine. Elf's Light is a power-up card that increases the attack and defense of a monster with Elf in its name by 700 points, rather than the usual 500. This makes it a pretty powerful option if you have any elves in your deck. There are actually only 6 monsters in the game that contain Elf in their name, being Mystical Elf, Ancient Elf, Dark Elf, Gemini Elf, Wing Egg Elf, and Dancing Elf. Another power-up is Horn of the Unicorn, which is also pretty unique but a lot more versatile. It goes on pretty much any dark monster that has a horn. If you want to know what dark monsters have horns, you can look at the power-up section of a card on the info screen to see if it is compatible. This includes a lot of Fiend cards, some dark spellcasters such as Skull Knight, and also a vast majority of the dark dragons in the game. Goblin Fan is a full-range permanent trap that reverses all effects that deal damage to life points. This not only includes spells such as Tremendous Fire, but also reverses the effect of Ryoku. So use it against the final bosses of the game for the best results. Gravity Bind is an extremely powerful limited range trap that is arguably the strongest limited range trap in the whole game. When an opponent's monster triggers it, it will permanently spellbind that monster and also reduce its attack and defense by 1500. It is the only trap card in the game that spellbinds permanently, and 1500 is also the highest amount of attack and defense reduction of all trap cards in the game. Greenkappa copies the attack and defense of the highest attack monster on the field when you flip it face up. You can do this when it's on a neutral or weak terrain, then move it onto Meadow so that you can beat over that monster. It also actually does tell you what the highest attack is on the field, whether it's your own card or your opponent's. Harpy's Feather Duster destroys all spells and traps that are vertical and horizontal from the position it's activated. You can use it to get rid of traps before attacking, but I would say a card such as Royal Decree is more useful and reliable for that. If you want to clear all non-monsters on the field, regardless of where you activate a card, consider Heavy Storm. Just be wary as Heavy Storm can also destroy your own cards. Mimicat allows you to revive any card from the graveyard when it is activated. If you revive a monster from either graveyard, you can immediately move and potentially attack with it. Otherwise, if you revive a non-monster, you can't move it until the next turn. This is a property shared with all revival cards, so if you revive a non-monster, just be careful. It's fine if you revive a trap card such as an enemy's Mirror Force, as that will be active just by being on the field, but just be careful if you revive a spell, you cannot activate that spell until the next turn. And if you activate this card and then realize there's actually nothing in the graveyard that you want to revive, Mimicat can always just revive itself. Magician of Faith has a similar effect. It has an identical effect to Grave Robber. It will revive any non-monster from either graveyard slots. But it is a monster, it's a low deck cost, it's a female, light spellcaster, so it's useful for a lot of fusions, and it can also flip itself down with Darkness Approaches, which is really cheesy. Meteor Dragon is a pretty uninteresting card on its own, but is rather famous for being a component of Meteor Black Dragon. If you fuse Meteor Dragon with Red Eyes Black Dragon, you will create the 3500 attack Meteor Black Dragon, which is actually the highest attack card you can actually play out of the hand. Pretty neat, huh? Mystical Capture Chain spellbinds all Fiend monsters on the field while it's face up in the defense position. It's very useful in a duel such as Monado Fabula's Chakra variant, Pegasus to spellbind his Toon Summon Skull and Bakuri Box, or you could spellbind literally every single monster Darkness Ruler can play, and he can now literally never attack you. Seiyaryu is the equivalent of We Have Blue Eyes White Dragon at home. It's a light dragon with 2500 attack, with an effect that grants it an extra 300 attack and defense when battling Fiend monsters. He's cool, and pink. If you like dragons, chuck him in your deck. Slate Warrior is the most popular immortal in the game due to the ease of access, and it's honestly one of the better immortals in the whole game. Immortals do not die on Crush terrain, but instead actually receive a terrain bonus on Crush, meaning a card such as Slate Warrior will always be able to beat any non-immortal on Crush. Slate Warrior boosts Immortals by 500 when flipped face up, including itself, which will raise its attack to 2400. And like all immortals, it will leave crushed terrain when it dies, exactly the same way as Dark Plant or a monster equipped with Crush card. Swordstalker gains 100 attack and defense for every monster in your graveyard when it is flipped face up. This was a favorite for a lot of players growing up, as if you use it late in a duel, you could realistically have this monster achieve anywhere from 3000 to 4000 attack when you're pretty deep into a duel. It is worth noting that Muka Muka, a card with much lower stats, has a much more powerful version of this same effect, gaining 300 attack and defense for each monster in the graveyard. So if you have any more than 8 monsters in the graveyard, Muka Muka will actually give you more damage than Swordstalker. Mirror, mirror on the wall, what's the most powerful password of all? Well, of course, it's this card, it's Mirror Wall. This card is absolutely broken in the campaign. I mean, it's strong enough on its own, like conceptually, but like some previously mentioned passwords, the AI never ever takes this card's effect into account. So even with a face-up Mirror Wall, the AI will just attack you as if you don't have Mirror Wall on the field at all, even though their monster's attack will get halved and then lose to yours. They will attack you anyway, they will always do this, so just having a Mirror Wall on the field will make any duel against the AI stupidly easy with pretty much any deck you could possibly make, and honestly, this card just kind of ruins the entire game. So if you want a really, really, really easy playthrough of Duels of the Roses, just give yourself Mirror Wall. But if you want cards that can be part of a strategy that wins 100% of the time you resolve it, you can try Exodia. The head and left arm of Exodia can be obtained by entering in their passwords. The right leg of Exodia can be obtained if you line up 3 cards in a row in the graveyard slots, and the right arm and left leg of Exodia must be obtained via reincarnation. These are exactly how you obtain these cards, the 2 pieces requiring a password being the easiest. To play Exodia, you need to rank up the head of Exodia at least once so you can set it as your deck leader, and then once you have it as your deck leader, end your turn with one each of the 4 limbs face up on the field. Now, you could just enter in all these passwords and become overpowered at the start of the game, but there's actually a lot more creative ideas to do that. In fact, I made a whole video talking about how to become overpowered at the start of the game, so if you're looking for more YouTube content, especially on Duels of the Roses, go ahead and check it out.